Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2023 album review. And today we're going to be talking about a band that, well, definitely doesn't really need an introduction. And without this band, I don't think metal, well, as we know it, wouldn't flourish well, especially with newer bands today. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be talking about the new album from Metallica entitled 72 Seasons, which is out now through Blackened Recordings Musics. Now, I don't think I need to say anything about Metallica that hasn't been said already by many people. Been around since the early 80s, really important band in heavy metal. Well, very influential, I should say. Been putting out classic albums such as like Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, which is easily in my top 5 favorite albums of all time. Yeah, and they're really an important band. And this new album is the band's 11th full-length studio album, but I'm not counting all like the Garage Days Inks and all that stuff. And follows up their previous album, which came out in 2016, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So 7 years it's been since we had any new Metallica music. So does this live up or exceed what Hardwired to Self-Destruct has? It kind of does. I feel like for the most part, there's a lot of great stuff on here, but the only little minor things is I feel like they could have done a little bit better, but the majority is pretty good. One thing to note is the production and the mix on this album is pretty good, especially with the more recent Metallica albums. It has a really great production and a great balance within everything. The vocals from James Hetfield, I feel like his voice has really kind of improved. It sounds very more gruff and a little bit more, it's hard to describe it. It still has a very distinctive voice that James Hetfield has, but you could definitely hear it good. And I know that, and James's riffs on this album, like, and him and of Kirk Hammett both come up with some really great guitar riffs. Like, James does a really great job handling the rhythm guitars, whereas he just has that very fast-paced right hand, and then Kirk just come up with some really great leads on here, and I think he's just an influential guitarist. Like I said, I don't think I need to say anything about Kirk that hasn't been said by many guitarists already. The bass playing on this album is pretty audible. Robert Trujillo pretty much stepped it up. And I just think he's a pretty good bassist. I really wish he could use more of his talent like he did on with his past bands like Suicidal Tendencies, Infectious Grooves, when he does like the slap bass. I just think he's just really too good to be in Metallica, in my opinion. But I think Rob is a really great performer, especially when I saw Metallica live back in 2017. He definitely shows a really great stage performance. And drumming wise, Lars Ulrich, I know a lot of people make fun of Lars Ulrich for being a terrible drummer, but I noticed in the more recent years he's actually gotten surprisingly better, and he does a really great job holding down the rhythm on this album. So without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is the title track, 72 Seasons, and it opens up pretty good with a fast-paced riff led by Kirk's guitar and Lars's drums, which kind of reminds me a little bit of like their 80s days, but then it slows up a bit, resembling more kind of like the newer Metallica. It sort of feels like the old meets new with the 72 Seasons, and I just think this is a pretty good way to start off this album. And then we go into Shadows Follow, and this song feels like it should erupt, like just explode after like a little snare intro from Lars, but instead it goes into a nice mid-paced groove, and Lars's drums are really up in the mix, and it's very much goes hand in hand with Kirk's guitar playing, unleashing his wah-wah in the solo, and just everything about the song is pretty much what sums up what Metallica is. Next song on the album is called Screaming Suicide. Now, this song feels very nice and refreshing, angry. It almost kind of reminds me of something off of like Kill 'Em All, but in 2023. And the band has done metal that's long, complicated, progressive, and everything in between, and especially in like Master Puppets and Justice for All era. And I feel like this may be a return to the less complex, even basic sounds of like early Metallica. And the lyrics on here are pretty important, like screaming suicide, which conveys in a very important message in the current times to know people that you are not alone. Reach out if you're hurting. Next song is Sleepwalk My Life Away. Now, this song is pretty much where Robert Trujillo really shines. He offers some really sick bass lines over Lars's kick drumming, and then James and Kirk comes on and with some really great guitars, and it's a song kind of reminds me of something very stoner or like it's that's the whole vibe I get with it, but then it goes into unfortunately a pretty blues rocky kind of riff in here, which I think is kind of okay. Hey, but then we go into You Must Burn. Now, this song just makes you want to bang your head when you hear it. And this song kind of reminds you a little bit of like Sad But True without having like the dramatic kind of like lyrics in there. Next song is Lux Eterna, which I believe was the first single from this album. Now, this song is a very thrashy song. This song kind of reminds me a lot of like Hit the Lights from Kill 'Em All. Kirk and James come up with some really great riffs and has some really great drumming from Lars. And Metallica, I feel like kind of picked up where they left off after Hardwired to Self-Destruct, from like the chord progression during the verses, and then James coming on with a very overly melodic delivery and a simple rhyme scheme, which I feel like it could have been the least inspired thing on this song, but thankfully the soaring cries of Lux Eterna make up for it. Moving on to Crown of Barbed Wire. Now, this could have be a song from like anything from like Load or Reload, and it seems unlikely if it would be played live. I don't know, it's just me. Chasing Lights up next. Now, this song kind of starts off with a little a cappella intro before kicking right into gear. Having like Chasing Light is a pretty good song. Then we go into If Darkness Had a Sun. Now, I feel like these two songs, Chasing Light and If Darkness Had a Sun, back to back, are like the only highlights lyrically, but neither song is bad, but I feel like there could be some more references. Now, and speaking of If Darkness Has a Song, now this song is kind of less thrashier than the previous songs that we've heard, but withstands sort of like the expectations on the technical front. I feel like it's nostalgic a little bit, kind of reminds you of something from like Death Magnetic. Too Far Gone. Now, this song feels very punk inspired, and it feels like something from like the Garage Inc. era, right? And this is another fairly fresh song. Room of Mirrors. Now, this song has pretty raw lyrics about like mental health and being honest in the face of criticism, and I think it's a great important message when James states, "You might judge, you might just bury me, or you might just set me free." Hey, and I just think it's a pretty good song. And then we close things out with Inamorta, which is pretty much the longest song that Metallica has written. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's 11 minutes long. It's just a spalling kind of jam. Has some really sludgy, snarly riffs, and then Hetfield sort of like singing Misery, She Needs Me, Oh, But I Need Her More. I feel like this song is very melancholic, and this song just feels like it's never boring, but Hetfield kind of like sounds very authentic here, and I think it's a pretty good way to close this album. Now, overall, 72 Seasons by Metallica, a pretty good album, I should say. Definitely good to hear new Metallica again. So if I were to give this album a score, I'm going to give 72 Seasons by Metallica a solid 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the new Metallica album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the album, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.